Good evening, and thank you for joining us for this evening's school board meeting. Mr. Romano, roll call.
Mrs. Brinkman.
Present.
Mrs. Delaney.
Present.
Mr. Chumley. Present. 3 present. Mr. Rudy will arrive shortly, and Mr. Schaff let us know that he would not be present tonight.
Great, thank you. All right, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, I'm going to kick off the presentations this evening with, I entitled it Understanding the Student Experience. And this is a compilation of some quotes and some ideas that I learned in meeting with students. So these were probably my best days in March because I got to spend long days with students. So we visited elementary students and had a range from kindergarten all the way up to 5th grade students who participated in like a superintendent like roundtable discussion, and then spent the day at the middle school and had representatives from every grade level, and they even invited in some WCOA students that were middle school students. So they came in, and it was their first time they had been back in the building since March of 2020. So it was like their eyes were like deer in the headlight a little bit at first, and so that was very enjoyable to learn from them. And then just spent some time with our high school students, and it was just awesome. And so what I'm sharing with you is, if we're going to improve the experience for all students, we can't stay doing what we've always done. And so who better to learn from than from the mouths of babes as to where we're strong and where we could get stronger. So I have the ability to do this. So improving the student experience in West Clermont really begins with amplifying student voice and improving the experience of our students to a more student-centered approach. And it begins with a caring community reaching out, a caring community really understanding the needs of our students today, but also thinking about their needs in the future and responding to those. And I really believe we have a caring community, and we've just got to work harder at truly understanding the needs of the modern student, and especially a modern student going through a pandemic. And so that just takes lots of listening and time. Because what we want is for our students to all own their learning. And I will say that was probably a big theme that came through conversation, which I thought was adorable. But they were like, Miss Adams, we just became so mature in May of 2020. And this was from the little kids all the way up to the high school kids. They all said it in different ways. But they were saying, we were kind of just like, we had to figure it out. There wasn't a teacher in the room where you could just like raise your hand and have her come over to the table. Like you had to like figure it out. And so they have this, even though there was lots of frustration that comes with that, they also had a sense of pride of, we figured it out, we did it. And so they thought that they learned a lot of things, and they felt like they kind of came back to West Clermont in the fall as more mature learners, more independent. And so we want our students to own their learning and really have a sense of belonging with their classmates and with the community and with their teachers, and to have hopes for the future. And so I want to kind of read this part here because it's so important. The reason our vision of Learn, Lead, Succeed is so important is because we want our students to be able to talk about their hopes and dreams for the future. Because when you can't, that means you're at a high risk for acting out, for school failure, and for leading a less satisfying life. And so we want to make sure that our students never feel voiceless, never feel defeated, hopeless, and aimless. And those are all words I have to say that even as an adult, I've kind of felt that at times during the pandemic and COVID. I don't know if you guys can relate. And we just want to make sure we're putting opportunities in place for our students for their voice to come alive. Just this last week, there were 2 of our students who presented at the Rotary Club for the 4-way test for Rotary to represent the East Side at the next level. And these 2 students that presented they were passionate about mental health, and they were passionate about the drug crisis. And their ability to talk about that was just so amazing. And I just kept encouraging them, like, no matter if you're winning 1st, 2nd, or 3rd place through this competition, being able to use your voice, I mean, it's just so much more powerful than what adults even say. And also the reason why evaluating and looking at the student experience and amplifying their voice is so important is because we want to empower them so that they can make decisions and choices about their life. And that not only do we want them to have hopes and dreams, we want to make sure we're supporting that, we're flanking that with the right opportunities and the right supports to actually be able to live those out. So that's why this is so important to me, and just something that I hope to continue to be able to grow over time, and we'll also encourage the principals. We have some of the principals that have like principals cabinets where they meet with students. Mr. Gephardt does that, and I've met with those students several times, and we're starting to see that more in the elementaries as well. And getting student voice is really important to Mr. Hudson too. And so here's just a little sample of what you hear from them, or what I heard from them that day. So we asked questions like, if you could teach a class at your school, what would that class be? What does it mean to grow up? If you could help teachers or principals do one thing to make school better, what would you say? What was your best day at school? Tell us about a time when you were able to help someone else be happy. What jobs look interesting to you? And then just more of like, what do you wish we could do at school? And more of, less of, what's a good teacher? What's a good school? And these elementary kids, I mean, you can see there, he's dressed quite kind of fancy. Like, they took this opportunity to come and meet with me very seriously. And they were all very proud of their professional look. The portrait of a graduate reminder here, this is from our State of the Schools, but just to kind of put it out here, if we're going to have all students be successful, that key ingredient is a student-centered experience, so that our students can be courageous in the face of challenges and turn ideas into action, do what is right even when no one is watching, create the lives they desire, and to pursue personal happiness and joy. And so this is what I learned. Overall, our students prefer interactive learning experiences. This is not surprising, but they talked about this a lot because I think this is the thing that they feel most missing from their experience this year. I would say teachers have made some attempts, but it's just not the same, and it's not quite the level that they're used to, and this is definitely a missing link in students' lives. They also, in their own ways, even from the youngest of young to the oldest students, really talked about wanting to make a difference in the community and wanting to be challenged. They don't want to sit in class and just kind of listen and then just regurgitate information. They really want to be pushed, and they find their own way of kind of expressing that. And as I said, when I listened to, especially the WCOA, but it came out across all students, is the sense of pride about their independence, is also this need, they're like, we just need more flexibility in time, like we need some breaks. And they were very eloquent in even just saying, I think our mental health would be so much more improved if we just had some downtime, some breaks, a snack time. And so they were just very keenly aware of not only the importance of academics, but taking care of themselves socially and emotionally. I mean, that came through, shined through over and over. So these are just some quotes that the students shared that we were able to capture, just to give you a little sense of it. And I will definitely be bringing more students to the boardroom in the future, but we're doing it virtually for now. So we got to make stuff with string, popsicle sticks, string, mulch, and sand. We were building and experimenting on topics like the weight of pennies, understanding erosion, learning about how different cultures killed the prey, and all kids like hands-on. And so like when the student is saying this, you can just kind of picture them being in knee-deep in glue and their hands sticky and the class a mess and it really loud. And that's the kind of stuff that our kids are missing. It's that getting a little bit dirty and having those conversations with their peers. We had a student say, the teachers have a lot more to do this year than we do. We need to do more this year. We want to help out and have hands-on learning. And so it was just, again, really cute, just talking about, they noticed the heavy load, the heavy lift that teachers are taking, and they were saying, you could trust us, we could help you, we could do more. And so I think that just really speaks to, I'm turning mine, but not yours. I apologize. You got to see the cute kids. I apologize about that. I just now realized. Their just awareness of other people really came out, and caring about their teachers. I would say, you know, you go to a session like this and it's like kind of open forum, or you can complain or celebrate or whatever. And they had more empathy for their teachers in their conversations than I would expect. I mean, they were just so thankful for them, for all the things that they were doing. And then in this case, we're saying, but, you know, we could help out, we could do more. From the high school kids, there's a lot more to life than how well you do in school. It's how well you feel in school. And so they were very articulate, and I think I've shared this with you before, and it came out in the themes of their conversations of just feeling like, here I am in this large high school, I'm around all my friends, and yet I still feel so lonely and so disconnected. And that kind of came out in a lot of their conversations. They, as you know, the seniors are saying, you know, like, we're mature, we can handle this, like, we got it, even though we're bummed about lots of things about our senior year. What we're worried about are those freshmen and sophomores that really never built those friendships in the way that we were able to do. And so they have a real heart for the kids coming after them. And, you know, I've said this before, but I really think this senior class is special. And these kids that have learned to like live and survive a pandemic are going to be the next great generation. I mean, something wonderful is going to come out of their pain and their challenges. Students are concerned about their preparation for the future. They want to learn more life skills at school. One of the kids, this cracked me up, she said, you know, we just need like some more street cred, Mrs. Adams. And she was talking about, this was a sixth grader, and she was literally referring to like how to navigate challenges on the playground, or because they have recess now in sixth grade, and they were just saying like, you end up in like social situations that are hard to navigate. And they're like, the more we could learn about how to handle sixth grade recess, the better we could be at life, which I just thought was so mature for them to make those connections. But they weren't meeting like literally the streets, but they're just meeting like day-to-day life, like we need some more help with it. And to a group, I mean, this went without fail. They want to learn how to cook. They want to learn how to change a tire. They were very worried about taxes and how they budget their money and how they use credit cards. And so, you know, several of them were talking about jobs that they were having in their homes and needing to like help support the family, helping to say that, you know, like this one in particular says that a lot of people say that you should learn all these life skills from your parents, but not everybody has that same kind of support system. And so it was in their way, or what I took from it was them kind of really crying out saying, yes, some of us are getting some of these experiences at home, but not all of us. And these are the things that we're like freaking out about as we're like getting ready to the finish line of graduation. And so it was just so helpful to kind of hear that out of their mouths. And when I shared with them the latest version of the Portrait of a Graduate and just had them react to it, because these weren't the students that helped with it. It was really the juniors and seniors from the last 2 years that helped make this happen. These kids hadn't really seen it much. And their feedback was like, yep, that's important, oh, and this is really important. So like they were all finding their ways to say, we're just glad that the district cares about us being happy and finding joy, and we believe that this is what matters to our parents, and we do want a better life. And so it was just nice to hear, again, from the smallest kids all the way up to the seniors, that they're like, yep, these are the things that we need, these are the things that we want to get better at. And so I was asking them, well, how far away is your school experience now when it comes to these things? Like, do you feel like your school experience is giving you this? And the answer was sometimes. And it had a lot to do with those after-school activities, or those things that go beyond the school day, where they weren't feeling like they were getting this as much inside of the classroom. And I have to say, quite honestly, a lot of that was due to COVID. And so what we're going to have to really work with our staff and our students is coming, as we continue to like finish strong this year and then plan for next year, of just bringing experiences in that really make this part of the school day and not just what you do after school. And I think that will increase our engagement exponentially and really give us a lot of potential here for exciting things. When you look at this phrase, commit to excellence with every learner, every day, and every way, it's really about us getting down to like, what does excellence look like? Well, excellence looks like having this Portrait of a Graduate come to life, so that students are well-rounded, that they're engaged and they're empowered to do things where they're thinking for themselves. And that independence that they learned during March 2020 and on into the spring we want them to continue to build on that, to expand on that. And we want them to be able to expand their thinking. We want them, this was the thing that I think that really stood out to me. They kept talking about how they had to really use their resources. And so when you're kind of left to your own devices, you've got, you're in the deep end, you've got to learn paddle, you've got to learn to swim. And so they were just saying, like, everyone having their own personal network. So if we could help kids come out of poverty, out of, open up doors for people by helping them just establish a stronger network, not only for learning, but for work and for life. And that can be something powerful that we do with our community. And then finally, the student voice, they're like a true partner. And these kids were so positive and so grateful. I couldn't have had better days than the days that I had spending with them. And so they deserve so much from us. And they are very patient, and they're open to new ideas, and they're ready for us to deliver on this portrait of a graduate outcomes. It excites them, and so more to come from our students. But I just thought it'd be important tonight, as we get focused on teaching and learning, that we continue to incorporate their kind of view on things. And so, of course, this is through my lens. This is me taking what they said, but it was wonderful. So, do you guys have any questions or just any comments about our students?
I'm very thankful that you take the time to spend with our students.
It was great, really. It was the best use of my time. So, well, with that, Ellie and team have been working really hard. We were kind of leading up to spring break. We had a million kind of plans that we were buttoning up. And, thank you. And coming after spring break, it was like, hit the send. We're going to survey our families. We're going to see where they stand on summer school opportunities and planning for next year. And so things are just rolling. We're in heavy hiring season and kind of program development, really. So the team is working very hard, and just want to give you guys an update.
Well, with that being said, I'll start first by giving an update around elementary and all the plans that are underway in thinking about being able to expand our elementary specials / cultural arts experiences. And in a little bit, in a few minutes, I'll talk about kind of how we'd like to maybe even consider rebranding what those experiences are called as a way of helping to more clearly articulate kind of our goals and our vision for what can happen during those times. But part of what we had initially promised was that students would transition from our current cultural arts experience, which is at best, and this year through the pandemic, it's not even anywhere close to what the best case scenario would have been. But at best, students have a cultural arts experience on a rotating basis, that it's sort of like 12 days on, then usually 24 days off, sometimes more than that, and that it's, and that's assuming that we haven't had to pull those teachers to provide sub-coverage in buildings and all other sorts of things. So we've continued over the years to try our very best to expand the opportunities through the creative scheduling and use of people. But this year, through both adding positions, so adding 6 positions, as well as repurposing some positions, we are going to be able to, we've built a schedule that will give all students an experience 4 days a week, every week. And so to think about, if you were to add up how many more experiences that ends up being for a student across a school year, I haven't done that math, but you can imagine, it's 5 times or something, at least, the number of experiences that they compared to what they have this year.
Well, I'm going to interrupt you, and I apologize. The elementary students were suggesting that we make this change.
Oh, good, perfect.
They were very much in favor of this.
This is the break they asked for.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
This is
in many ways, absolutely.
And they were just so thankful for those teachers and what they are able to do, because it's scarcity. When something is in short supply, you really value it, and so
Absolutely.
they truly value it. And then I would also add that when we asked the middle school and the high school kids to recall a time, and it doesn't matter what age you were, it could have been last week, it doesn't matter. tell us about a learning experience, and 9 times out of 10, they were talking about special.
Yeah.
So it just makes it even more meaningful.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so I've been working with our current art, music, and PE teachers at the elementary level to build out schedule possibilities. Our goals with this have been to, at minimum, give students 4 days a week of specials, to maximize the amount of collaboration time available to teachers so that when students are in those experiences, teachers will then have the opportunity to work together to, you know, for all of the work that needs to be done, and to really find ways to maximize the use of people. So what essentially that means is like to try to minimize the amount of time that people may be like traveling from one place to another, you know, so on and so forth. And so what we've been able to do, and I'll say part of what this is kind of part of the translation of positions has come through our gifted service model. What will happen next year is that right now students, 1 day a week, students who are identified as gifted in 4th and 5th grade, they go to our Gifted Learning Center. So they are taken from the building for a full day and they go there for that experience. Next year, that service is going to be provided students in the building. And what that, the added value to that for students is that they will still be able to participate in their cultural arts experiences on those days, so they won't be missing out on that experience. They'll be able to have lunch and recess with their peers. Right now, that's something that they don't have the opportunity to. They miss out on those days. You know, sometimes they have to miss out on a field trip, or they miss out on, you know, a special event that's been planned because they're just removed from the building for the day. And so bringing those services back to our buildings, which previous to gifted services being cut, that was the model that was in place. By bringing it back to the building, we're able to, for those students, just really added an added benefit to them. It also provides the opportunity for our gifted teachers to be more available to our classroom teachers, to provide collaboration and consultation support to those teachers, to be able to develop their toolkit for ways that they can provide enriching experiences for students, for all students within the context of their classroom. And so that's also another added benefit for those students. So what that means is that at any given time, we will have 2 of our gifted intervention specialists providing gifted services to students, and then the other teachers will be part of our cultural arts rotation. And so so I'll just kind of talk a little bit about how we're wanting to like brand these experiences. So you're all familiar with WC Your Future and kind of the opportunity for students there, like there are some experiences like the Explorers experience. So what we're really, to build off of what Natasha was saying in terms of the Portrait of a Graduate and the opportunity for us to build in experiences for students, we're really seeing that starting in kindergarten. It's not something that you wait until like you're a senior and then all of a sudden we start caring about. And so these experiences across the elementary school are really an opportunity for our students to discover lots of things through art, through physical education, through music, through these additional discovery experiences that our gifted intervention specialists who aren't part of the rotation will be able to offer. Students will have a wide range of opportunities to really just discover themselves through lots of different activities, and to work on problem solving and creative thinking and, you know, challenging activities that help them, that develop skills that can be applied throughout, you know, a wide range of, throughout their entire day in school and outside of school, working on teamwork and, you know, team building activities. Those are all parts of what will be built into these 4-day week experiences. That then at the middle school will be kind of expanded upon, and, you know, part of what we're talking about is then like it's an opportunity for students to navigate you know, their experiences, to have, you know, they've learned a little bit more about their self, and now it's an opportunity for them to kind of navigate their environment, and to make decisions about the kinds of courses that they might be interested in, to really dig into their interests and their talents and think about how that might play out for future pathways, et cetera. So then at the high school level, they can really have lots of opportunities to explore through internships and experiences, through work-study related experiences, et cetera. It really is meant to indicate that this is an aligned effort across our grade levels. And so by bringing these experiences at the elementary level, having them available every week for all students, it really is exciting. Like the sky is the limit, and it's really an opportunity for us to be intentional and purposeful with our planning. So, any questions about that part? As I said, like the students are excited about it. Our, you know, our cultural arts teachers, our discovery teachers are, you know, really excited about the possibilities of what's to come for them. And it's really an opportunity for us to build out programming in ways that we've just not been able to do at all.
Well, and once we announced, Ellie was able to kind of pull these teachers together. So it's like through their ideas, it just keeps getting better in terms of how it's shaping up. So we only like scrape the
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
surface on it. So
Yeah,
we're
this is
excited
still
about
like the
potential.
concept, but they are very excited about what this will mean for each of their areas specifically, but as part of a larger whole for all students. It really is great things to come.
Well, and I want to say this respectfully because it's a trigger in this district. The specials having gone and then just slowly trickled back. I mean, it's the thing that everyone's missing and that everyone wants. Of course it is. What we want to be clear about is we're not just returning to how it used to be. Like that's our goal isn't just to try to get back to where it used to be, even though it's a return of services. We're trying to kind of take it to the next level, and that's why that career readiness kind of edge is. And that spin is in there, because we want to make sure they're experiencing lots of different things and not just the traditional version of art, music, PE, and what this discovery type opportunity can be. We want to expose them to the community and to do experiments and just different things. And so that's why the rebranding that she keeps talking about is that we don't want to just say we're returning something and we're just going to do things like we did in 1990s. We want to take it to the next level. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so one of the other areas that I promised an update on was WCOA. So last week we sent out a survey to all of our families that asked them three kind of questions about three areas. One was simply like, are you planning to return to the district next year? And if not, like, where are you headed? And if so, great. We have a couple other things that we'd like to ask you. One is, are you intending for your child to attend school brick and mortar, or do you have an interest in WCOA? And then secondly, do you have an interest in summer programming? And we still have a few days left with this survey out there, and clearly we haven't yet, received feedback from every one of our families. As of this morning, it was like mid-1400s, and Jeff will be sending out a reminder to staff. But as of this morning, when I tallied the information as it related specifically to WCOA, we had very little interest in families participating in WCOA for next year, which as the tide has turned, so has interest in WCOA from early on this year, February kind of timeline. Our initial interest was about half of the people said yeah, we'd have an interest. Since then, vaccines have become available and things have started opening up. Guidelines for quarantine have changed, lots of things, and it's an ever kind of evolving and changing landscape. So the results of this survey, I think, are largely based on just kind of that changing landscape. And so you can see here, these are literally the there was one family in 4th grade, like one student that had an interest so far.
Well, and
you
that
know.
return rate on the surveys, you said it was like 1,200 or something?
1450-ish.
So like that doesn't, that's not per student, right? Like it was like a family response, or was it per student? 'Cause
Well,
I'm trying to-
so we asked each family to do one for each student
just
that they
turns out
had,
people did it.
but many, just from like spot checking, did it for like one of their,
That's
students.
understandable. It's like, it's just hard to know like how good that 14.
Yeah, whether it really
is of the
represents more or not,
84.
yeah.
Okay.
It is, and it's likely not 100% of our family will, will fully respond, but it does, these numbers really do align with what we're seeing across not only Southwest Ohio, but around the state. We're part of several kind of virtual learning consortiums, and many of the districts are indicating similar information coming back from their families. So, it's kind of at a place where we, like I said, the survey is still open. We haven't received, all of the responses yet, but, it does make you wonder whether we'll have a need for offering an online option. Now, I will say at the high school level, this is, sort of parents saying like, are you planning to grant permission for your child to select online courses? But at the high school level, that is all, the specifics of that are all being handled at the high school as part of their registration process. And so, so our ability to offer those courses, or sections, I should say, really, of courses, I think that the viability of that is really going to play out through the scheduling process. It's really going to be in grades 4 through 8 where we'll need to make district level decisions about our ability to be able to offer it or not. But surely if we only have, one 4th grade student, it becomes pretty easy to say, like, that doesn't seem to be an option that's going to be able to work. When we start looking at, numbers that would be greater than that, then that might be something, different. So this is really, again, just meant to be like, here's where we are as of this morning. We'll send the reminder, we'll get more survey results, and then as part of the board update on Friday, I will update you with current numbers, and then we'll continue to provide you with more information. But it really does, it's clearly trending downwards in terms of interest.
Can I ask a question regarding that?
Absolutely.
So you have the grade levels here. I'm assuming that's next year's grade level, correct?
This is based off of the grade that your student will be next year.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay. I was trying to value the 12 students in 12th grade, whether they're outgoing and they just randomly selected the, the interview, or that was.
Now, I will say that there are some students who are current 12th graders whose families answered the survey, and like the question was, will you be back next year? They're like, yeah, no. Where are you going? We're graduating. Like, we're out of here. We're, done. So, so they answered that part of the survey, but then obviously their numbers weren't included as part of this. So we do have current 12th graders who responded, but they're, those weren't
Are
counted.
you guys surprised by this?
Yeah.
You are?
Yeah, the numbers being as low as they are,
Yeah.
because I think there was a big push and appreciation for there being options.
Yeah.
I would have expected it to be lower, but one is
Right.
crazy.
600 kids, one student.
I think that they found out the grass isn't always greener on the other side.
Yeah.
The kids thought, oh, I can sleep in and all this other stuff, but they missed school.
I think another factor is like just the changing nature of families and their circumstances, and flexibility for some people to work from home that may not be granted next year, or someone who became unemployed and was able to be home who now is going to be returning to, a job. So I think even interest to continue learning in that way might still be there, but just the feasibility of having adults at home who are able to, support that work, I think is also a factor that's changed greatly for some families.
Any indication of why there are 15 7th graders? That just seems strange to me, compared to all the rest of them.
Yeah, they're at the top of the bell curve there.
Yeah.
Well, I started wondering if it's that sixth grade parent transitioning to the big middle school and just some
That would make
anxieties
sense.
around the unknown
Yeah.
that might factor in to make that number bigger.
There's nothing else I could think, I couldn't think of any reason for it, but that makes sense.
And I'm not even sure it makes sense.
But that thought
Because-
process then would go over to the high school, and you would expect the number in ninth grade to be
Yeah,
a little
so
elevated.
I'm
be
not even
higher,
sure, it's
too,
not even a
yeah.
good guess anymore.
Yeah.
That was the first thing that came to my mind, is just being nervous about what's to come.
Maybe that's just two families with a lot of kids.
Yeah, lots of multiple children, a couple triplets. Yeah, well, and again,
Some of the sixth grade students that I met with that were WCOA that day were like they thought it was the greatest thing that's ever happened to them. So, they just loved it. And so I think, you're dealing with what kind of student is best for an online environment, and then you've got the social emotional, so it could be a myriad of things.
Yeah.
Truly.
well, and I will say that when you look at the state of Ohio, like this year, we were granted this flexibility around, remote learning, and we were able to submit, not only our district, but all districts across the state of Ohio were able to submit sort of remote learning plans, and there was legislative flexibility for that to happen. Currently for next year, the Ohio Revised Code statute that would allow for online schools to continue falls under their blended learning, legislation, which essentially means that a part of the time that you would be learning, you can learn part of your time away from school, but part of your learning needs to be in school. And so I think too, at the state level, there's much more support for a blended learning model that looks more like the experience we're wanting to build at our high school, as we talk about that junior and senior year experience where you're in school some of the time and you're focusing on the courses that you need, but we're finding ways to grant flexibility and find flexibility for students so that their during the day experience can also mean work and experience-ships and internships and those sorts of things. So I do think that at the state level, that's really the direction that they're wanting to support schools and moving closer to those models and less purely online, 100% away from school models. So those efforts will continue in our district regardless of whether we offer a fully online experience. We have very much an interest in utilizing and harnessing technology to provide more personalized, student-centered, flexible pathways for students. And so I think that like I said, regardless of what ends up happening with WCOA, that's still work that will be happening in our district and a direction that will continue to head.
These numbers, though, would make it very hard to sustain it with staff.
And on purely online school, absolutely.
Purely on sustainability and staffing, this becomes really complicated. But I would imagine, you tell me that there's probably gonna be follow-up with each of these families to really understand their why, to see what might.
And once we send our reminders out, get sort of what we imagine to be our largest number of initial responses, then absolutely there'll be follow-ups. As part of this, we, gained we have information about the students specifically who was responding to the survey was, parent or guardian, who's responding on behalf of the student. Very specific identifying information that will allow us the ability to follow up and gain more information about that. But it's going to be really important for us to make these decisions soon because staffing, our staffing model will very much be dependent on what ends up happening with WCOA.
So how will this, these lower numbers, obviously, we wouldn't need as many online teachers. Would they, some people chose or, sought after being a virtual teacher because of their own health concerns. Would they, how would we deal with those types of situations?
So Dr. Foltz sent out a staff interest survey last week. asking all staff, and this was certified staff, there'll be a follow-up for our classified staff, particularly our paraprofessionals. But the certified staff survey just sort of indicated, like, what's your current position? Do you have an interest in returning that same position? If you're currently in WCOA, would your desire be to, remain online? Would you prefer coming back to the building? Just to kind of really as step one, figure that out. And there was an opportunity for staff who may have, health concerns or other things that may make returning back to the building challenging. They were able to indicate that as well. And so Dr. Fultz and I, once we have kind of the final results of this, then we'll be sitting down together to really work through the next steps of that. And also part of that, we're watching very closely our kindergarten enrollment numbers. And, I know from the updates that he provides with you all, we're like trending ahead of schedule, which is great. We don't know if that's just like getting us to our anticipated numbers quicker, if that means like more than anticipated, that's all part of what's still to come. But we'll be looking closely at those numbers, as well as trying to build our sections off of our predicted numbers from Who Knew It, to build out like our number of sections in each building, so that once we know what we imagine that to be, minus any students, minus our WCOA interest, whether it's going to dictate having sections available or not, then we'll be able to identify how many sections we'll need in each building at each grade level, and then we'll be able to work backwards to place WCOA teachers appropriately.
There could still be some outliers, some staff that, medically, for whatever reason, they might not be able to return, so then there'll be a process for them as well, so.
Yeah, it's lots of moving parts that'll happen, but absolutely we will work to honor people's interests and desires as best as possible. So it definitely behooves us to know these things sooner rather than later, so we can have time to make all of those things happen. Any other questions about that specifically? Okay. Oh, well, we lost, I don't know why that's showing. It's not showing on my thing like that. Who knows? Anywho, that says as of 4/12/21 behind the picture there. But this is, as part of that same survey, asking the question, would you have an interest in summer school programming? And so what we ended up doing from the standpoint of just being able to like really manage the program itself is we made available to families one of three options. You could come for the first 2 weeks of June, you could opt to come for the second 2 weeks of June, or you could opt to participate in all 4 weeks of June. And so the numbers there indicate that we have 105 total students interested in the first 2 weeks, 68 in the second 2 weeks, and 190 students interested in all 4 weeks. And then the breakdown of that, 306 of those students were from grades K-5, and 58 of those students from grades 6-8. The HealthPlex interest, what that means, we've had some conversations with the West Clermont HealthPlex to potentially partner with them, because if you remember, our summer school programming plan is to offer a half-day experience for students that would end at noon. And so we've partnered with the HealthPlex to say, they're planning summer camp experiences throughout the summer. And so in those weeks, specifically in June, where we're offering summer programming, if we have families who'd like for students to participate in our morning session and then go to the HealthPlex and participate in like a PM camp experience, we've provided information for families through the survey and as part of the district communication to provide them with that information and to ask, would you be interested in receiving more information and potentially registering your child for that experience? And so of those who responded specifically And most of them were at the elementary level. And it's really designed more for the elementary child. We had 132 families that were interested in receiving additional follow-up information. And so we'll be providing the specific names and contact information of those families to the HealthPlex so that they can follow up with those families. If they were ultimately to register, we've indicated that we would transport the students from the school where they were participating in summer programming to the HealthPlex, so that families wouldn't have to worry, like, now who are we going to have, pick them up and get them there. And in addition, the HealthPlex is offering sort of like an after camp, extended
Yeah.
day sort of experience that would take students up until 6 p.m. So it really would be an opportunity for families who, who might not have the opportunity to drive people places to really have a full experience over the course of June if interested. So, so this information is obviously critical as it relates to hiring summer school staff. And now that we're getting closer to having a better idea of those students who will participate, we'll know how many staff we need to hire and where we're going to be able to, how many buildings we're going to plan to offer this, and then have to work through all the details that will come, and there will be a lot of details clearly to come. So,
Do the 306 represent all the buildings?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah. And I didn't provide a breakdown here tonight, but I could provide you with that additional breakdown as part of the update for Friday as well, just so you could kind of get a glance at how many for each building, because obviously that's information we'll be looking at as we try to decide where it's going to make sense. So, any questions about summer programming specifically? I will say we're basing the programming off of a student's current grade level. So if you were a middle schooler this year, you would participate in the middle school experience. Same at the elementary level. And we're not offering summer programming for incoming kindergartners. There's just too many moving parts to manage providing services for people that we haven't yet even met. And we didn't really think it was in August, as part of just kind of the normal startup of school, there will be some transition plans transition activities planned for students who are transitioning, between buildings. That would happen, but we're not intending for June to be the time for those activities to happen. The other thing I will add is that we are working very specifically with students with disabilities who are planning to offer summer programming to ensure that we'll be able to provide a specialized experience for them. And so that will be part of our staffing needs, is to really ensure that we're being mindful of having enough staff available to be able to really target the summer programming to their specific needs as well. And I don't know, Dr. Storr, if you have anything else specific you'd want to say about that. But that's also part of the equation, is to just to ensure that we can just be mindful of their specific needs.
And then is the high school handling its own
Yes.
credit recovery?
Yes, and
those
that was
types
part of,
classes?
yes, absolutely. And so that was part of what we included in the survey. If you're a student in grades 9 through 12 and you're planning to participate in summer programming, AKA it's really more credit recovery, you can let us know that, but registration is really going to be handled at the high school. That's how we've done it in the past, and it seems like the flow of information just works better that way, and our counselors are really targeting students that are going to be in need of credit recovery. So that will all be coming, and I'll have to check with Randy and Christy on the specific date, but that will be happening over the course of the next week or two to share that specific information.
So it's more credit recovery and not necessarily they could take a class to get it out of the way?
Yeah, we're not really looking at
We're not
original
there
credit
yet.
right now, only because we want to, part of what I think we're trying to really, reframe our thinking on a little bit, and, there are lots of people who are talking about, like learning loss in the context of like what's really been lost according to what, like, and just trying to, for us, it's really about like missed opportunities for learning is really what we're trying to like be mindful of, and to frame it. Because for students, when they hear us like talking about lost learning and students like, being so far behind, and, as you think about the student experience and what that can do really to your psyche, like even unintentionally, and to the psyche of teachers and to,
Like,
to
people have not done something
families.
wrong, they haven't been bad.
Yes,
It's
like
just-
you didn't
it's
lose
just-
something like that you shouldn't have lost, and
Mhm.
now you're in trouble, So really just trying to be more mindful of how we really want to approach like our efforts. And so it's really, in the case of the high school, wanting to provide an opportunity to like make up for some lost learning. And so that we can like get more students back to a place where they're able to like hit the ground running next year. I will say that one of the things that I included as part of our plan that we had to submit to the state by April 1st, talking about extended learning opportunities for students. That is something that over the course of the next few years, we're going to be identifying ways to creatively provide additional opportunities for learning for students. And so in addition to the opportunities that they would have during their normal school day, look for ways that we could have additional experiences. So that might mean having students stay after school for an additional 45-minute period of time, and then providing a way for them to be transported home. It might mean at the high school an opportunity for students to come before school and to, I don't know who's, people trying to extend my car warranty or something is happening here on my phone. So opportunities for high school students to, just to start their day before their day, so that during the day they don't need to, they can find opportunities to recover for some lost learning opportunities, and then just like catch up more quickly, so that they're not just spending lots and lots of time recovering credits, or to stay after school, to find ways that we could then, work with staff through compensation, ways to pay people additional money, or to be flexible with how we might use schedules. All of those things are things that we would like to be able to explore as we move forward, because it really needs summer school. Like 4 weeks of summer school isn't going to automatically just like
Make you a math
100% like
genius.
solve
Yeah.
all the challenges that we have. Yeah, it's the beginning, and we're going to continue to seek ways to support that those missed opportunities for learning. Okay, so one of the other things that we've talked about, that has been talked about through the Onward and Upward plan, is the opportunity for us to be able to, on an ongoing and sustained basis, provide a modernized curricular experience for students and for teachers, and to ensure that our students and our teachers are equipped with the most modern resources available to support them in doing their work of teaching and learning. And so what I've sort of done here, and this is a draft, and for sure there may be opportunities to, this doesn't represent all of the disciplines, all of the content areas across an entire, PK-12 experience. But as we look at the most urgent needs within our district, as I've talked about expanding our opportunities at the elementary level for art, music, PE, those same things need to be built as part of an entire K-12 experience. And so then looking at if we're able to ensure that all students will have done XYZ sorts of things by the time they leave 5th grade, what does that mean for what our middle school experience and our high school experience? How can we expand those things so that we're we're setting the foundation for kind of the robust experiences that would happen at the middle school and high school. And so it's going to be important for us to spend time developing curriculum, identifying resources, purchasing materials at the elementary level, and that all needs to be done as part of this larger vertical alignment. And so that's sort of an urgent need. And at the not only at the elementary level, but at the secondary level, it's been an area that hasn't been able to have had very much focus, and especially, financial resources. And they're, making do just like really all of our departments with, the best of what they can get, boosters to support or grants to, support or whatever it might be. And so that's an area that we will need to spend time and effort and financial resources supporting. You've heard that mathematics across the district will be an area that we will kind of move into next as it relates to this curriculum process, and really ensuring alignment across the district and financial resources to support that. Science will need to be next. STEM experiences, and that's really like allowing for more like STEAM experiences where, the arts can be like integrated into that, but it's been far too long since we've been able to really build out that K-12 experience, and so that needs to like follow closely behind. And then, ELA, we've been able to like piece together some things at the elementary level through our grants, but really it's going to be necessary. And these things like really, it's like I'd like to say 23, 24 would be like ELA and social studies, because this isn't to indicate like social studies is less important. So if like financially we could figure out a way to, make that happen.
Just for the integration purposes.
Yeah, and so
It might
that
have to be
really.
collapsed a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So that isn't meant to indicate like one more important than other, just trying to build out financially how we would be able to make that work. But, it's a significant investment that needs to be part of an ongoing cycle, just like we know with, roof replacements or, other needs that if you let them go for too long, it becomes really challenging to then like all of a sudden find, an even more significant investment. That's kind of the place like where we found ourselves as a district. And so this will be an opportunity for us to get back, for the first time since I've been here to like get on the cycle, but to really be able to support our students and staff in the way that they will need to. So any questions about that?
What about other areas?
Yeah, so this is meant, I will say that those dollar amounts include other areas like for the purpose, and I can share with you, I can't like pull it up right now, but I can include as part of the Friday update the cycle that I've built that includes every single one of our disciplines to kind of show. So those dollar amounts include building in like world languages, for example, or business courses, or the art is meant to contain both visual and performing arts. So those numbers really are inclusive of everything, just for the purpose of trying to like emphasize, certain ones. I didn't like put them all on here, but yes. Oh, absolutely. They're there.
I put MP3 player. I thought they still used them. I was pretty much laughed out the door
Right.
on that. We use our cell phones.
Right.
And that's from a textbook that's not very old.
Yeah. Well, and
So
that's the
the-
thing. Like these things change on a very regular basis, and this doesn't always mean it's going to be like a book, but it could mean purchasing digital materials that change every year so that you can have the most current both technology tools as well as content.
Well, it could also be curating open ed resources, like, because there's a lot more available now that you can have for free, but it's a matter of, you've got to have it organized, you have to have it adopted and understood by everybody, and it can't just be a free-for-all. So it could be investing in staff, could be part of that,
Yeah.
those dollar amounts as well.
I'm pretty much learning to be, I won't say anti-textbook, but not textbook dependent.
Yeah.
You can get some good ideas from a program, but it's constantly changing, and there are a big chunk of it, some chapters or units I don't like.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what, like Mrs. Adams said, those online-based, or what you said, I don't know which one you said, but those, I think they're great. They change
Absolutely.
every year.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's really what this is meant to represent, a modern approach to this, and one where it's continued to be ongoing. And so we may have placeholders for dollar amounts to ensure that the budget is built around that, but it may mean that, I'll use the example of world languages. So it may mean that in 22-23 is where we have planned to budget the money, but it might mean that the year prior to that, we're really starting our study process, so that we really are clear about what our needs are, where we've been able to articulate and vertically align our goals and our vision for what we want world languages to look like across our district, so that we're ready the following year when it comes time to be able to make decisions that will cost us money. And then we have planned follow-up and support for implementation. Like, these all represent things like, the year is really more of like the year that the money would be available, but it's part of a much larger, more robust experience that covers multiple years for each of these areas.
It's just a more complicated process than ever. I mean, you used to like have a curriculum adoption cycle, you would pick a book, and if, say, you weren't gonna look at that subject area for another 4 or 5 years, you could look at the book and say, oh, the books aren't really in that bad of condition, we can just keep them. Well, you don't buy books anymore, so it's like, it's a much more involved process, and keeping everything current it takes more manpower than what buying a book and distributing books used to look like.
Well, and as soon as you print something, and it's in any line of business, I mean, I've been a practicing pharmacist for 30 years now, but 30 years ago, we would get a textbook or a reference, and as soon as that reference was printed, it was outdated, because hundreds of drugs come to the market every day.
Absolutely. Yep.
So it's, you
Yeah,
know, it's
and
like-
it's very similar, it
Yeah.
is really, and I will say organizations like College Board, for example, they have been working to modernize the curriculum for our AP courses, and to offer AP courses that are more problem-based in nature, that allow students to really explore through different approaches than what has happened in the past. And so if you purchase like books and they're continuing to go through a cycle of updating their curriculum and offering those options on a yearly basis. And so, we don't ever want to like feel like we're marrying ourselves to a book that then like handcuffs teachers to have to like have one very specific instructional approach over another. And so to the extent that we can stay connected to resources that are able to be flexible and update, the better. But as Natasha said, like, that takes time and effort and ongoing and constant, updates and work on part of our staff. So I'll make a note for myself as part of that Friday update, show you the entire, so you can be insured. And I will also say other things that aren't covered on there are things like intervention and English as a second language, looking specifically at gifted programming and, materials that are necessary as part of that. That's also part of what's part of that larger cycle.
And I was also thinking of all those other great electives at the high school.
Yes, yeah. And most of the electives are offered within the content of, so like, for example, social studies. Social studies would represent both our core courses as well as any electives offered as part of social studies. Same thing with science or ELA, math, those things. They would kind of fall under the timeline of the entire discipline.
This is great news, because those world language textbooks
Oh,
were about 3 or 4 years before I retired. Now I've been retired 8 years as
Yeah,
of June 1st.
absolutely.
So they really have to be outdated.
yeah, absolutely. That's
Because
an
I'm-
understatement.
I'm using one from 2018 or 2019 loosely, and it's just, I can't believe how much has changed since then.
Yeah. It is. Well, this is a silly example, but my sister, she recently had a baby in March, And I think like with baby products, I mean, and it's been 6 years since my youngest was born, and it's like mind-boggling to me. I'm like, I don't even know what that thing is. Like, what do you have her doing? What's she sitting in? It's like things change. And even like that department that you think would be fairly like consistent over time, but every year it seems there are new like ideas and tools and contraptions, and I don't know, that it's really, our students deserve for us to be able to keep up with, with the best that's out there in the research. And, companies, you'll even see a shift with, companies where all of their money is put into research and development. And so frankly, to purchase a textbook is no cheaper or expensive than purchasing the digital product that is updated on an ongoing basis, because the money is in the development for the product, not really in the printing of the materials. So financially,
And the digital world does not afford my colleagues the opportunity of reading those textbooks that you would bring us, those giant
right.
textbooks, and we'd have to review it and give approval to it. And we were always so thankful of Mr. Lewis because he thrived on that. And so
it does make that a little different, doesn't it? Yes.
So, yeah, you'll miss out on that opportunity, but nonetheless.
Come up with another review process.
Yeah,
that's,
right.
more manageable.
So those are those plans. And Amy, do you want to talk about our elementary special education programming? Although you want to see it here too, won't you? Yes.
Yes, we are very excited. We have hired all of the teachers for our expanded programming, for our specialized program for special ed students K to 5. And it was really excited to see that a lot of our internal teachers, some of our seasoned intervention specialists, like decided they wanted to just stand up and rise to that occasion and take on that challenge. So we have a very experienced team that will be leading those programs. I'm really happy about that. We are starting some conversations on this Friday. We're bringing that team together for the first time as a whole team to start a series of very intensive professional learning and just planning so that we can come together by the beginning of next year with a solid plan of programs, having our resources in place, having our classrooms designed that truly meet the needs of all students, and especially these students. Family conversations have pretty much all taken place. There are a few family conversations where there's still just some decisions that need to be made as partners with the IEP team, and those have gone very well. So it's been a lot of work, getting to this place, and there was a lot of thoughtful conversations, a lot of bringing stakeholders together to inform what next steps we would take, and having all those voices at the table early has made this process go very well thus far. We've included our new parent mentor in that process as well to help inform us from the parent perspective, and she will be involved in a lot of the transition activities that we'll have for students that might be transitioning to different programs this spring.
And then just a reminder, the Parent Mentor, that's a grant from the state of Ohio that we've got. And it's really meant to kind of be that in between the parents, the translator between parents and district, and try to help make that a smoother connection. And she has hit the ground running.
She really has.
And really been a great asset to really families and us.
Right.
Right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Is there any questions about that?
Exciting stuff.
Yeah, it really is.
It's going extremely well, like to be this far and to just continuing to build positive momentum. I mean, that's incredible work. It doesn't happen by accident, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So thank you.
So, a few challenges and then next steps. So we are thrilled, clearly, to have our expanded elementary, specials, cultural arts, discovery experiences for students. In some buildings, that's going to come with some space challenges. And so I'll use Merwin as an example. Merwin has a cafeteria that also is a gymnasium. And, when you have gym on, 12 days out of the school year, you can figure some things out and try to make things creatively work. When you now have gym 4 days a week, that's going to become a bit more challenging. And so really, and that's just one example. And certain buildings are in better shape than others. And so Mr. Perry and I are kind of revisiting our maps. And he actually today, I haven't had a chance even to look at them, but sent revised maps just to really, again, be able to, like, with a fresh set of eyes, knowing what we now know about what those experiences will look like for students, including our gifted services being back in our building. The model for that is that in a similar way to students this year, they would be pulled from their general education classroom for a day, and so they'll need a space to be in the building with their gifted intervention specialists and the rest of their classmates. So needing a space for that to happen in each building, and then to the extent possible, being able to identify a space for our specials experiences is one that, now that we know what our plan is really going to be able to be, going to need to attach a space to that. And it will be, there will be some challenges. There will need to be, and I've been, really clear and upfront with our teachers, it's not ideal, but there will be some situations where we have art on a cart or music on a cart happening because there just, in some buildings, will not be additional space to dedicate to that. And then in other buildings, there will be, and that's just, again, kind of part of the nature of where we are. But that is a challenge that will be with us. Next steps will be finalizing our summer school programming and really being able to hone in on our specific numbers so that we can hire staff, we can develop curriculum, we can plan for transportation, child nutrition needs, partnering with the Health Plus, et cetera. And so that's a lot of work to happen in a short period of time, but we're really excited about what that will look like. And then obviously with WCOA, and again, really trying to encourage all of our families to respond so we can be ensured that we have the best information, that we have the best, feedback from them that we can use to make our decisions moving forward about what we'll be able to offer or not offer students and what that will mean for staffing. So those things are all really going to be happening over the course of the next few weeks. It's really our intention to let our staff know where they will, what their, teaching assignment will be for next year, as well as to be able to give our buildings information that they need to build out their master schedules, to create their teams at the middle school level. All of those things are sort of dependent on one another. To identify the number of sections that we're gonna need at the elementary so that we can attach staffing to it. All of that will need to happen, and so we really need to get these plans finalized over the next couple of weeks. So that's that. Any questions about any of that?
Well, I know we're gonna, the gifted families will be getting a communication this week.
Uh-huh.
What other communication do you have coming out?
There'll be a district update tomorrow that gives some information for just all parents.
A reminder about completing the survey, and then we'll be sending this information about kind of our, not only our gifted program, but really our more specific details about the elementary experience, and then our gifted intervention specialists will follow up with more specific information directly to those families that
Most of our
they serve.
it's been kind of high level. Now we can get a little bit more detailed.
Yeah.
I interrupted your questions, but I just remember communication, that's a big part of all of this, keeping the right hand and left hand knowing what's going on.
Absolutely.
I'm excited about where we're going.
Yeah, it really is.
It's very exciting, and just to make a comment about all with the specials, the cultural arts coming back in. My son, who was a graduate of the class of 2013, had those things in elementary school. My daughter was, 5 years later, and she had a little bit, and I can see a difference in what they had. So, I mean, what we're gonna be able to give back and then expand upon is exciting, and how we're gonna, incorporate the, what you can do with it. Like, you can see, oh, this is what I can do within art. I can be an artist, I can be, a
Digital
Graphic
design.
designer or
Yeah.
whatever, you see how the real world fits into all those things that you might be attracted to, so
Absolutely.
it's exciting.
I will mention, we're gonna bring this teacher in and celebrate, but today, there was the 2021 American Red Cross Frontline Hero honorees were completed today. This was a Red Cross ceremony led by Sheila Gray, and we had our very own Shannon Pence, she's an intervention specialist at the high school, was selected. And so across the whole region, it was a fireman, a transportation, a driver, Kroger, a nurse, a director of health management, a teacher, and American Red Cross volunteer. So she is among very few people across the city who's been honored as a frontline hero. So it's a very cool video. We'll send out the link again because I know they did record it. But just awesome to see our staff elevated and celebrated on such a high platform.
Is Sheila Gray from Channel 12?
Sorry?
Sheila Gray from Channel 12?
Yeah,
News?
Sheila Gray from Channel 12. Yes. So, anybody else have anything to add to wrap up?
You wanted me to remind you to mention the pilot?
Oh, to you.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. We'll talk about that later. Sorry. All right. Well, that's it.
Okay,
We don't have a need for executive session.
we don't.
No.
Good. Anybody for board comments? Wrap up early? Mr. Reedy? No.
No, I don't have anything to say.
Okay.
I'm sorry I was late.
No worries.
I attribute it to COVID brain.
We understand.
It's a real thing.
Absolutely.
It's getting better, but still having issues.
Good. All right, do we have a motion to withdraw?
So moved.
A second?
They kind of want to stay, it sounds like.
I guess I'll second. Mr. Chumley first and Mrs. Delaney second. Roll call?
Mr. Chumley?
Yeah.
Mrs. Delaney?
Yes?
Mrs. Brinkman?
Yes.
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
4 yes.
Thank you for joining us. Our next board meeting is on the 26th of April